There may not be a word in health and fitness that causes people to give up faster than the word genetics. It runs in my family. My parents had it. That's just the way we are. And the moment people hear that word, many stop looking for solutions. They stop believing they can improve. They stop believing they can fight back. They stop believing that they have control. But what if genetics has become something far bigger than science ever intended? What if it has quietly become an excuse for hopelessness? And what if many of the things we once believed were simply genetic turned out to be something entirely different? Today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast.
Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast
with Garrett Williamson.
Health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, and a whole lot more. Got questions? Call us and leave a message at 251-278-EDGE or message us at Personal Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, at Team PE on Twitter, or personaledgefitness.com.
Hello again and welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. I'm Garrett Williamson, and as always, we are here to talk about health, fitness, longevity, and pushing back against what I call the lie of age. The belief that decline is inevitable simply because time passes. And today we're talking about another belief that quietly robs people of hope every single day. That's the lie of genetics. Now, before we begin, let me be very clear. This is not an anti-science podcast. This is not anti-doctor podcast, and this is not me claiming genetics does not exist. In fact, you've heard me say this before. I come from a medical family. My father was a physician for 35 years. My brother is a physician. I have tremendous respect for the medical community. Physicians are trained to repair problems, and thank God they are. If I blow out my ACL tomorrow, I already know which orthopedic surgeon I'm calling. In fact, he's on my cell phone. But what we're talking about today is something different. We're talking about what happens psychologically when someone hears the phrase, it's genetic. Now, the problem with the word genetics, here's the issue. The moment many people hear the word genetics, the search for a solution stops. And I see this all the time. Someone comes in with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, obesity, diabetes, joint pain, and somewhere in the conversation they'll say, well, it runs in my family. And many times, once that label gets attached, people psychologically surrender, not consciously, but internally, because they start thinking, this is just who I am. What I look at instead is when someone tells me something is genetic, the thing I immediately go to are the four components of ability: fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset. Because I've told you before, those are 100% controllable, because those four things are overwhelmingly controllable. And then I ask another question. What was the family lifestyle? Because family history is often family behavior. I'll give you an example about this. I had a client years ago who literally told me his fat was hereditary. I thought, well, I'll bite. Specifically, he told me his stomach fat was hereditary because his father carried all of his weight in his stomach too. Now, on the surface, that sounds, well, mildly convincing until you look deeper. Because he and his father also shared, besides genetics, DNA, they shared the same eating habits. They shared the same activity level. They shared the same lifestyle pattern, and they had the same mindset around health. So was it genetics? Or was it repeated behavior across generations? That's a very different question. What science keeps discovering, and this is where things get really interesting, medical science repeatedly discovers examples where we once thought something was simply inherited and later found specific causes, behaviors, or environment triggers. Not because science failed, but because science continued asking better questions. I'll give you a few examples on this. Example number one, peptic ulcers. For years, stomach ulcers were blamed on things like stress, personality, constitution, even hereditary tendencies. And then researchers Barry Marshall and Robert Warren discovered that many ulcers were strongly linked to a certain bacteria. The discovery completely changed medicine. What was once viewed as just the way some people are suddenly had a definable cause. Let's go to another one, eyesight and myopia. Here's another, it's a fascinating example. For years, worsening eyesight was viewed primarily as genetic. And genetics certainly may play a role. But modern research now shows that the explosion in childhood myopia, that's nearsightedness, cannot be explained by genetics alone. Why? Because genes do not change that quickly across populations, but lifestyle does. Studies now strongly connect this myopia to reduced outdoor activity, increased screen time, prolonged near-focus work. They connect all that to worsening eyesight. Again, something once largely blamed on genetics, now heavily linked to environment and behavior. Here's another one, type 2 diabetes and lifestyle. Now, you may not think of this, think all your life you've known this, but one of the most powerful examples of this comes from the research of the Pima Indian populations. The researchers found dramatically different obesity and diabetes rates between genetically similar groups living different lifestyles. One group maintained a more traditional active lifestyle and nutrition pattern. The other adapted a far more westernized sedentary lifestyle. Same ancestry, very different outcomes. That's incredibly important because it shows us that environment and behavior profoundly influence the outcome. What happens psychologically? This is the most important. Here's where this matters so much. Here's where this is really affecting your life. The moment someone hears it's genetic, most stop fighting. Not because they're weak, not because they're lazy, because hopelessness is psychologically overwhelming. It takes an extraordinary mindset for someone to hear this runs in your family and still aggressively pursue improvement. And unfortunately, most people never receive that encouragement. Now, again, this is not a criticism of physicians by any means. Most physicians are extraordinarily busy trying to save lives, repair damage, basically put out fires. And many genuinely understand the importance of lifestyle intervention. But the reality is, the healthcare system often deals with people after problems already exist. That's very different from what we do. At Personal Edge Fitness, our focus is controllability. What can we influence? What can we improve? What can we completely change? What can we strengthen? The danger of that label, because labels do matter. If someone believes this is unavoidable, they're going to behave differently. I mean, completely different. They stop trying in many cases. They lower your expectations. If you don't stop trying, they'll at least say, okay, well, that's definitely going to happen. Maybe I can make it happen slower. So they lower their expectations. Many completely surrender the possibility of any change. And mindset, as I've told y'all many times, affects behavior. Behavior affects lifestyle. Lifestyle affects outcome. Now, does genetics matter? Of course, genetics does exist. But I believe genetics matters far less than most people think. And I guarantee you, as I've showed you in the examples, every year it seems to matter even less. Far too often, we stop asking questions too early. Because if we cannot point to a specific mechanism, then we are surrendering to an assumption. Why not aggressively pursue better fitness, better nutrition, better lifestyle, better mindset? Especially when we know those things dramatically influence human function. Here's the bigger truth. This is not about denying biology. This is about refusing hopelessness. Because once someone believes improvement is possible, everything changes. Folks, the lie of genetics is not the idea that genes, well, they don't exist. The lie, it's that hearing that word genetic should not make you stop fighting. Because possibility still exists. Control still exists. Improvement still exists. And helping people rediscover that possibility, well, that's just one more way we help you reach your level of wellness.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Subscribe now and be a part of the show by calling 251-278-EDGE or message us on Facebook and Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness or at Team PE on Twitter, and visit us at personaledgefitness.com.
Did you know only 22% of 8th graders are proficient in civics? It's a statistic that affects all our futures. But Alabama's Liberty Learning Foundation is changing the headlines. We partner with schools to go beyond the textbook, teaching civics, character, and financial literacy in a way that empowers students to make a real impact in their own communities. Help Liberty Learning Foundation build the leaders Alabama needs. Join the movement today at libertylearning.org.